Hello everyone, thank you for the introduction, Stuart. This is Phil. He's a vegetable farmer that I work with in the Sydney Basin. He farms solo, but that certainly doesn't stop him from being curious and willing to try new things on his farm. He operates in a highly competitive market where prices are kept low and don't match the rising cost of inputs. He has to find efficiencies in his operations to improve his margins. Phil also strives to farm sustainably and has been growing cover crops in rotation with his vegetable crops to protect the soil from erosion, compete with weeds to reduce herbicide use, and conserve moisture. He started including legumes in his cover crop mixes to add nitrogen and bring more diversity to his rotation. Phil, among many other growers, were asking me similar questions. How much nitrogen is being added? What's the best method of termination? When does it become available? And how much fertiliser and cost can I save? I didn't have all the answers to his questions, and that's what encouraged me to do a Nuffield Scholarship, so I could support the growers that I work with by putting the science into practice. I want to help them grow good crops, save cost, and grow sustainably. Looking more broadly to the Australian vegetable sector, the cost of production and low produce prices are an industry-wide challenge. An industry sentiment survey that was conducted a couple of years ago showed that 34% of vegetable growers were considering exiting the industry within the next 12 months. And half of those said that rising costs of inputs were the primary reason. On top of that, consumer demand for sustainably grown produce backed by mandatory emissions reporting is placing more pressure on growers. On average, 17% of on-farm greenhouse gas emissions on vegetable farms result from nitrogenous fertilisers, not to mention the downstream emissions obtained from manufacture and transport. Today I'm going to share 3 of my key takeaways from my travels. The first, know the principles and get the basics right. The second, apply those principles to the unique farming context. And the third, build a healthy system. So where do legumes fit in? We have 78% of nitrogen in our atmosphere around us. It is free. Why would we not use it? We know that legumes have the unique ability to fix and establish a symbiotic relationship with rhizobia bacteria in the soil. Rhizobia provide nitrogen from the atmosphere, and the plant provides a home and food for the rhizobia to live. This is not a new concept. It's been practiced for thousands of years, well before the invention of synthetic fertilisers. But knowing the principles can help growers get the most bang for their buck. It starts with inoculating the seed with the correct rhizobial strain at planting. Sowing with a low soil nitrate to start with. Maintaining a soil pH above 5.5. And above ground, growing the legume crop well, maximising biomass, watering it and providing it the right nutrition as you would any other crop. The plant fixes and stores on average around 25 kilos of N for every 1 tonne of dry matter produced. A well-grown legume can grow roughly 8 tonnes of dry matter. That's an addition of 200 kilos of N per hectare. With the price of urea hovering somewhere around $700 to $950 a tonne, the equivalent N you've added from your legume could be worth around $300 to $400 per hectare. So we've got nitrogen fixed into the plant, but it's not yet available. The plant material has to decompose for nitrogen to become available into mineral forms like ammonium and nitrate. And on average, 30% of legume N actually becomes available within the first 100 days after termination. But because this process is biologically driven, microbial activity and therefore the speed of nitrogen availability is influenced by a range of factors, such as soil temperature, soil moisture, residue quality, so the carbon to nitrogen ratio, and termination methods. And some things are factors of Mother Nature. What can a grower control? They can start to manage the timing of their planting and termination, or if they have water available to them, they can irrigate in dry conditions, or choose termination methods that meet their needs. So now, the key challenge is that no one combination of practices will work for everyone. They have to be applied to the unique farming context. Of all the people I travelled through my Nuffield Scholarship, each farming system was so different. Whether you're in the Netherlands or France, Canada or the US, UK or Australia, operating in pasture, vegetable systems, cereal rotations or tree crops, on heavy or light soils in warm or cool climates. Each grower has adopted legumes uniquely to their situation. But what I observed consistently was that they were all growing legumes in one of three ways: legumes as cover crops, companion crops, or cash crops. And I'll now share a brief case study for each of these. I'll go back to Phil. I've chosen Phil as my first case study example because he thinks outside of the box and he strives to make things work in his system. What I've observed is that growing legumes as cover crops appears to be the most meaningful and impactful way of adding lots of nitrogen, as it allows you to grow bulk biomass. In Phil's situation, he's growing faba beans with oats in his cover crop. The oats forage for available nitrogen, which forces the faba beans to fix their own N, and Phil has focused on really inoculating the faba bean seed to maximise N fixation. Phil invested in a roller crimper to roll the residues, leave them on the soil surface, and protect the soil during the time he's not cropping, which could be up to 6 to 12 months. Adopting this practice has actually saved him up to 50% in his herbicide use, as he's not having to spray weeds as often. Phil was getting all these broad system benefits, but we started thinking about what's actually happening to the nitrogen. How much N is actually remaining when he goes to plant his cabbage? We've started measuring it and are learning that N is slowly being released over time, but there's opportunities to improve this approach by trying to grow legumes closer to when you actually want to plant cabbage and exploring mulching and incorporation as a way of doing that. So next up, Woody Van Arkel. He's a grower in Ontario and Canada who grows corn and sugar beet. He's been establishing permanent clovers in his system as a living mulch in corn. His goals were to reduce tillage, improve soil health, suppress weeds, and explore the potential for nitrogen contributions. His approach: sow the cover crop, let it establish, spray out strips, strip till, drill his corn. To avoid competition, Woody has built his own inter-row mower, which comprised of 5 lawn mowers attached to a toolbar. And his purpose was to keep the clovers low to the ground, which is also stimulating nitrogen release early in the corn's growth. The termination width has proven critical. Too narrow, and the clover outcompetes the corn. Too wide, and weed suppression is lost. The species is also critical, so not to compete with the corn. He's also played around with his nitrogen fertiliser applications at varying levels to see the potential of clover to contribute nitrogen. He saw areas with clover and no N staying greener for longer than the area without clover and nitrogen. And so far, Woody's been able to reduce herbicide application and improve aspects of soil health, but this system does add extra complexity. Peter, whose family owns Sementes Com Vigor, based in Brazil, grows soybeans, corn, cereal crops, and also has livestock. Soybeans are a cornerstone of their rotation. They've really focused on inoculating their soybean seed with rhizobia and have been exploring added co-inoculants of azospirillum, which is a free-living nitrogen-fixing bacteria, after some new research. They've focused strongly on the role of inoculation to encourage the soybeans to fix their own N, and they also make sure that the pH is at a suitable level to optimise rhizobial activity. And while most of the N is actually removed at harvest, they do still count 30 kilos of N per hectare remaining after soybeans as a contribution to their next crop. So really my objective was come back with a toolbox of strategies. Tying it all together, what can a grower have influence over? It could come to species choice, the termination method, timing of planting and termination, the quality of the residues at termination, practices like irrigation to speed up mineralisation, and figuring out the right order of crop rotations so that you can maximise the benefit of legumes in the broader system. And one thing that I did observe is that most people weren't actually measuring nitrogen contributions from their legumes. It was all based on feel and experience, but we could embrace more tools to measure what's in your soil, what's in your cover crop, and how is your crop performing afterwards, and adjust our fertiliser applications to suit. And finally, build a healthy system. Of all the growers that I visited, there was a resounding message that resonated for all. Legumes were a part of their system, but they really believe the cost savings came from building healthy soils and getting the basics right. They embraced the approach of stopping, reflecting, thinking about their practices, and doing the things that actually count. Adopting practices like growing cover crops, reducing tillage, adding diversity. They are themes that we've been hearing today from Dave and Claudia's approach. Overall, these practices can help to build improvements in productivity, profitability, and sustainability, and build resilience in our systems to extreme weather events. But what sat behind these healthy systems really were the people. The successful growers were the ones that were persistent to make something work and used trial and error to apply their learnings over time. It was farmers sharing their knowledge, experience, and learnings with other farmers, and farmers collaborating with researchers to put the science into practice. So my key takeaways at the core of this comes back to knowing the principles well, so maximising the benefits of your efforts, applying it in a unique context, and for growers, this has to work for you. My recommendation would be to start small and then build complexity, and then build a healthy system, thinking about the influence of each practice on the broader health of the farm and the role of people in the success of your business. So where am I at in my journey? I started this with huge imposter syndrome. I'm not a primary producer. I didn't feel like I belonged here. But I'm choosing to use this experience to amplify and share my learnings to the broader vegetable sector through my role in extension, like the field day that's on the screen. I'd like to acknowledge Nuffield Australia for this experience. I have grown so much as a person, and this would not have been possible without my sponsor, Hort Innovation, so thank you. Applied Horticultural Research, I'd like to say thanks for allowing me to go on this journey, especially my team who've been supporting me while I've been travelling, not to mention my family and my husband Marty for his support, and my technical and other mentors. Thank you to Wade and Nikki Mann for encouraging me to apply for Nuffield, and of course our cohort and the broader Nuffield community. Thank you.